into the conversation proper. So Bright Star Entertainment, when they came a few years ago, they've really redefined singing. They have redefined comedy in the Gambia with the amazing work that they're doing. And with that, it has brought about a lot of other groups in the Gambia who are also doing the same thing. So thank you so much for leading the way when it comes to dance and comedy in the Gambia, and often collaborating with NGOs such as Will to ensure that advocacy reaches the masses. So a round of applause for Bright Star Entertainment. The floor is yours.
Alright, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hand. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hand. If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to say it, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hand. If you're happy and you know it, touch your friend. If you're happy, if you're happy, yes,
yes. If you are happy and you know, slap your friend. Hey, ma ko ñun tru ko ci bakaro de waje ñe lok. Xam nga map fa lañ ko dé designer map comme map bi Africa map ak yu xamu leen fan la.
No,
si boppi jigéen ni su nek imagine amu leen kawar.
yes.
Ngeen delu no
na la di lu.
Yalla mo xam la mo tax mu jox jigéen kawar.
Nga gis map bi Mali bi
foko na si.
Nga gis map bi Nigeria.
Oh.
Map bi South Africa.
All right. Doctor.
Huh?
Dr. Fatou Balde dama bëgg nga wuyal mako.
Fatou Balde Banna, mashallah. Huh?
Ki Barack Obama moko pose.
Yalang galmeta fulale ko fulasi nani jatru sinani. Buku yengere ni buku hoseng. Jalo ni jekite. Balde Banna.
Baha ngini.
E ko musi ya mam fo barko la fota. Barka bi fala. Barka bi bala.
Nisa.
Yakata musulu nyala yakata kewlu nyala Balde Banna su war ka fam ni jigen bu man goor
saram le ne ka gel wa saram le mun na ne ka
Yafa. Binde ne
Fatou Balde nanti ganan jakki
mune Fatou Balde borom bax la.
ansire ni Fatou Balde
mom moy support goor ñi te moy support jigéen yi du jigéen yi rek la moy support.
dañ ne ku am dara te dara ji jarul la dara do am si dara ji dara.
Waaw.
waaye ku am dara ji jaral la dara di nga am si dara ji dara.
Moy deug.
Fatou mo am dara diko sédok ñepp.
Waaw.
Dama bëgg ngeen taccul lolu nonu ni.
Yes. That's our sister.
Alright, so we've been part of the Transitional Justice
process.
You know, we've been part of it because there are different ways of killing a rat. We had a presentation here, Fatou, but we will present musically, comically. Do you understand?
Yes,
so it was the first song that we've ever, made, courtesy of International
Center for Transitional Justice.
So please listen to this song. It talks about everything as far as transitional justice is concerned.
Yes, I.
All right, DJ.
Are you ready? Hands in the air, please. Rasta. Sound engineer. Your sound is dipping. DJ. Yes, I. Volume, please.
Human rights abuses. Such measures include criminal prosecution, truth commission, reparation programs, and various kind of institutional reform.
Yes, I.
Justify where was I when we lost my right eye? Let transition be injustice. Let justice be embraced and kissed.
Allah sawo ba ñor kan ne dal mo ma ko ya ñor kan ne.
Be smooth and flat. Let your enemies be filled with fishes. Let the Gambia be free from glitches. Justify where was I when there were millions of demands no supply?
Please start it again.
Millions of questions don't reply.
I say the cats are crowing in the morning. Kokoliko, say the cocks are crowing in the morning. All right. Are you ready? I said the cocks are crowing in the morning.
Rastafari.
After the year ahead.
We got King Selassie I from letter A to I. No Z but Y. Transitional justice of judicial and non-judicial measures.
Are you listening?
We have to redress legacies of
Human rights abuses,
and such measures include criminal
prosecution,
truth commission, reparation programs, and various kind of institutional reforms. John, Rastafari, where was I when we lost my right eye?
Justice. Let's do the justice sign, please.
Justice be embraced
Yes.
and kissed. Let righteousness be glad. Let peace be smooth and flat.
DJ yang ngoyahal DJ.
Fed with fishes.
Like.
Let the Gambia be free from glitches. Jah, Rastafari. Where was I when there were millions of demands, no millions of questions don't reply? Who they?
I say the cocks are crowing in the morning. Kokoliko. Everybody. I say the cocks are crowing in the morning. Kokoliko. I say we living in a funny season. Our faces look like roasted chicken. I say in tribalism. Oh no, looks like an idiot season. Make us see Alabi Yamale. Calvin on the dal. Look at you dal the randale. Me no carnival. Give me my banana. Oh, cause you in my magical man. Suma atawa kanana. Ngasaka suma 5-star dinagana. I will tell you like Spider-Man. Karate you like Jackie Chan. I'm a like policeman. Now I am you like Iron Man. Hey you Mr. Man, don't let a munyim bangkoti. Mr. Mamalan, yang urek meka wakati. Mafane Sulaiman, Abdurrahman, Fabulama, Jiman Sadar. We have to move from the bad chapter to the good chapter now. No to tribalism, wolfism, mandinkarism, foolerism. But all we need is unionism. Nemo Judesim Kosaswa, or the Alterem Pater, Hamulentus, Delegatus, non potes delegare. You the reason why we have let's interparte. You the reason why we have let's interparte.
So many youths in prison with no justification. But right about now, all we need
Yes.
is the truth and reconciliation.
Everybody say justice. Everybody say justice. We know you. Transitional justice. International. Merko waktani. Justice. Transitional justice. International justice. Transitional justice. Alright, justice. Kita get justice, but sound be more no. Well, justice and be bound. Yes. But we good. We still good. Give us the next track. Kucha. From Kucha, we also go to the TRRC song. Yes. We also have another one, Survivors. Yes. So let's go, DJ. We don't have time. Okay, you know what we're gonna do? You know what we're gonna DJ? Disregard everything. Value entertainment, then you dema. Let's go. Ajubu janjak moral lege wallahi billahi kada jumbol lai kendo sappe horon tollai baramadika Kalero sangundumba ida Kenya soro ona yigam mogan sala ko mo paten suna melo ko hello pa yigena kata nan to kujana da kujale kama na kujale kama kujao bisa binyana doktor ko nyeko nakuchabula janinga ba koeko fana koeko nakuchabula niya ngapa aprenten makan lembang eyali matunga beri ko male de kuto ko nai kuchale tabinyo kucha katoi kucha ekini pati mani kalenda ada pelangnya de ataide kanjo kamboja guana tunyo dak buga yoni guy wow so dama na yoni sumale kay ma yoni len ngenen fan sumale ker bu ngenen ma ban bu you understand ñu foxta ni halala ma yoni len fan ker buki ban buki ala ban ala dafa wara wa banjul ñu mëne fox digal guy yeen dafa wara neex man tam mo nekkon America wa Banjul dañ mëna fox bu nekké Las Vegas America performance bi dafa neex dafa neex na neex even bu nekkon China tam ni la Chinese tam ban ci kay ma yoni len ker buki ban buki docteur wax mo dara de kay ma yoni len ker buki buki ala ban ala jeri ban jeri tan bombe bombe la feñ dugub dof hana yen all right, thank you very much so one last freestyle no pour jigéen ñu bàyyi di sonal jigéen ñi barka démb nag barson Gambia post nañ nag benn paa buñ dóor jigéen ñi tam bu leen dee dóor góor ñi waaw gender based violence lañ wax waaw so su ko defee sexual violence no more no man no cry no more sexual violence no more, do not harm the girl child. No more. If she says no, she means no. No more. Do not rape the girl child. No more. You happy? Thank you so much. All right, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Jenaba.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bright Star Entertainment. So now, my job is done here halfway. So we're now going to head right on to the panel discussions. We have two. We have the first panel discussion, which is on the role of diaspora in post-TRRC processes. We also have another panel, which is the role of youth in post-TRRC processes. We're discussing youth and diaspora today, and the panel will be Dr. Ismaila Baji, Sirandao, as well as Madi Jabate, and this will be moderated by Imran Gay. So we can just have the panelists join us, and I will hand over to Mr. Imran Gay. A round of applause for Dr. Ismaila Baji. Have you all observed, Dr. Ismaila Baji is not just a doctor now. He has this very amazing podcast. Who else enjoys it? Everybody. we like the diversity. We like that. Also, Sirandao. Sirandao is also here for the panel. A round of applause for her. She'll be very familiar to you if you have visited the Memory House, where some of the old stuff for victims of human rights violations during Jammeh's time were kept. If you have not visited, please stop by. You'll be amazed by some of the things that you will see there at the Memory House. And also Madi Jabate. Uncle Madi is here. Where's Uncle? Okay. But meanwhile, a round of applause for Auntie Sira. So I was talking about the child-friendly report of Fantanka, and I forgot that Imran, I did not check to see if Imran, I was talking about you going online to ask questions on how you can access it. So the right person is here. You can just, we have a networking session at the end of everything. So please, if you're still going to school, make sure to ask him all the questions that you want to ask him, and he will tell you how, as school-going children, you can access the child-friendly report of the TRRC. You're welcome, Auntie Sira. Thank you so much, Auntie Sira, for leading the way when it comes to memorialization in the country. Like I said, make sure to visit the Memory House if you can and check what we have there. So, Imran, Gay, are you ready to take over? Oh, I have Gay here. Oh, Dabo, sorry. And you know, I've always called him Imran Gay, even if it's not. Everybody calls him that, even if it's not with the program guy.
There is an Amran Gay.
Oh, there's an Imran Gay. Amran. Oh, nice. Amazing. Okay, so Dabo then, Mr. Dabo.
The only thing is that they're both brilliant, so they get mixed up.
So you see, they're both brilliant, so it's okay to mix them up. It's normal. We can just leave it at that. So, Mr. Dabo, the floor is yours. They will be discussing the role of the diaspora in post-TRRC processes. Thank you so much. Uncle, yeah, I did call Uncle Madi, but I think he stepped out. He'll be joining you shortly. Yeah, he'll be joining you shortly. You can just start, and then when he comes, we can just take it from there.
Thank you very much, Jaina. Always a pleasure to be with you in the same company. And welcome to my panelists. Dr. Raju, Imran, welcome. And Mari will join us shortly. And thank you, Will, for this really very important event that, it's a very important dialogue that must be had here. I know that our diaspora colleagues and friends and family usually feel neglected, and rightly so, during our processes. We need to be more intentional about including them in all processes, making sure that they have a platform, they have a voice, and they're contributing. When you have somebody who contributes as much financially in a country, really definitely they should have a big role to play. I think there's a saying that says that he who controls the purse strings controls the world, right? It's not really about money though, but we know that some of our most brilliant Gambians are abroad and really have a lot to contribute, not just financially, but also in terms of their knowledge and their expertise, and should be included. So I'm very happy really to be part of this panel and part of this event today, and looking forward to what our panelists have to share. And of course, the rest of the audience as well. Do we have any diaspora online as well today? It would have been great to have also some of them online to join us. So we're going to start off with Dr. Baji. I have a few questions, really talking about the role of the diaspora. Dr. Baji, diaspora is considered one of the really most important contributors in this country, in many different sectors as well. In your and you being a diasporan, what role do you see the diaspora playing or have been playing in the transitional justice process, or should be playing in the transitional justice process in the Gambia, in your perspective? Could you share that with us, please?
Well, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum to all of you guys. And to my fellow panelists, Mr. Dabo. And that was a pleasure. The conversation around the diaspora, I think even if we speak about it from a perspective of Gambia, we won't be doing it any justice. I think every black nation around the world is anchored by its people in the diaspora. And there's also a saying in terms of to whom much is given, much is expected. So the diaspora even if you talk about transitioning or reconciliation, I think oftentimes the word that's important is reclamation. How do we reclaim and get something back that not only belongs to us present day, but belongs to the future as well? But the diaspora conversation is also very tricky because oftentimes I say for you to be a diasporan, it means you should have left. Why did you leave? To whom did you leave for? But is it harder to leave or is it harder to come back? And what does come back even mean? Most diasporans like me are here physically, but majority of them are here financially every single day because you get sutural bumi gache, for food, education. So I think oftentimes, even if we speak about the diaspora in terms of Nipsilen, come home, no, they cannot come home. Most African nations will go into poverty and starvation if all the diasporans come home. Each diasporan has a responsibility to define how will you come home. People like myself are in Gambia because I do come from privilege. I have a family that don't depend on me for their daily living. Most people in the diaspora don't have that opportunity because Smaya is Mapan Solwin Darasiman, alhamdulillah. So for me to leave my career in the USA, yes, is a sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice that's rooted in acknowledgement of privilege. So that conversation oftentimes is also not had because it's easy to shame Gambians in the diaspora, Nipsile and violence in Ligay. No, not everybody could come. So the people that can't come, you have to have a very comfortable relationship with discomfort. Because coming home is one of the biggest sacrifices most people make because it requires you destroying a life that you knew. And all of us like comfort. And Gambia, comfort is scarce. Gambia, you could put everything in your life to Gambia and Dara to Guinea. So it comes with a different kind of spiritual relationship with why you're coming home. So I think the responsibility is big, Sarah, but it has to be very nuanced in how we have a conversation about it. Alhamdulillah, Gambia has peace. And we take it for granted sometimes. But even if you look at the nation, they didn't say prosperity, progress. Gambia said peace, progress, and then prosperity. Prosperity should be the destination, not for us. I don't think we'll reach prosperity in my generation. My generation will have to decide what everybody is going to sacrifice for. There's a Gambian who's born today. That's who prosperity is going to be for, not our generation. We've already lost one generation of Gambian minds, talent, because Amunyuan Jama, right? So part of the conversation is how do we start having 50-year conversations and not 4-year conversations? But the role is huge. It will require sacrifice, and it will require us realizing that nobody is coming to save us. And Gambia is so fragile that most parts of the world, we are an afterthought. But Gambian vitamin dafa degu dafa buka bopam, dafa gom bopam. So I think if we leverage the diaspora, then we could start seeing how we could change Gambia in 2050, because it's not going to happen now, but it's a tremendous responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baji. Really, definitely, I cannot agree with you more in terms of the long-term conversation. This cannot be about today or tomorrow. And as we say in TJ is not an event. It's a journey, it's a process that we see South Africa, who started 30 years ago, and other countries who are still, their transitional justice process are still ongoing, and they started long before Gambia. I think one of the things also we tend to not recognize or appreciate is how much Gambia has done as a small country in TJ in the around the world. How much we have done compared to our other counterparts in other jurisdictions. But I'm going to get back to you one more time about, really, yes, the conversation should be a long-term conversation, but in the here and the now, how do you see the diaspora playing a part in the process of what is happening? Because at the end of the day, yes, long-term, but we are here now, and the now is a very crucial question.
Yeah, that's a very important question. As you mentioned, you guys may know about They say $760 million comes from the diaspora every year. We all know it's more than that because our aunts and uncles love Dugalamafi Majola Fele, and it doesn't show up on the reports. I think the diasporans in the now need to start having a conversation around economic liberation. Economic liberation. What do I mean by economic liberation? Any place that has a lot of problems needs people to solve those problems. I don't think we're aware in terms of where the diaspora dollars go to, who it goes to, why it goes there, and is it staying not even a year later, but sometimes weeks later. So it's twofold. The creators need diaspora to put their money in businesses that could solve our problems, that could create employment for half the people in the room, if not more. So it's two ends, and it's all money. Every nation, every sovereignty, the people's power in wealth, we have to pay attention in terms of where is the Gambian dalasi going to, who is it going to, and what are they doing with that money? It's one thing to say, let's say last year, 51% of the diaspora money went into building materials. How many Gambians have businesses that are in the building industry to accumulate $350 million? That $350 million has left Gambia last year. But the diasporans are contributing. They're building homes, right? Even migration, when we talk about migration, migration is a human right. And I think as much as we talk about, there's nothing illegal about migration. Human beings are meant to go where there's opportunities and resources to fend for yourself. But the conversation right now has to be an economic one. Gambian diasporans need to know who are the Gambian builders, who are the Gambians that are solving problems. Let's put our money behind those individuals because they will be the custodians of jobs for generations to come. That's one end. The second, in terms of start tracking where your money goes to. There's nothing wrong. You don't have to be anti-something. You just have to be pro-Bugasaboba as well. So the diasporans have to have a conversation around economic liberation because us in the private sector, I could tell you we're losing in a way that most people don't realize. Halis Mungsi Dekabi. Money is coming into this country from the diaspora. Money is not staying. And the young people don't have jobs. And the ones that don't have jobs are not paid a living wage. That is a function of us not paying attention to the economic power of the diaspora because black people, the wealthiest black people in the world, live in the diaspora. So that's the conversation about now. Yes, we need certain things in terms of the right political environments, the enabling environments, the people who have power bestowed on them being pro-diaspora, because the elephant in the room is and it's very confusing. So the things that we go through just to have impact in this country, people that don't look like us, and you question, that has nothing to do with them. That has everything to do with us. The diaspora, because as a human being, if you're pouring, at some point, even if you were 35 years old like I was when I decided to leave my career and come to Gambia, you could wake up and you're 40 with wife and children, and you cannot sacrifice the way you do. So the conversation right now is an economic liberation conversation. Let's control the power of the Gambian dollar that's coming in and make sure it stays and it circulates within our people. That's when we become self-sufficient. Thank you.
Absolutely. Economic liberation is the biggest thing about it. And I mean, if you look at our TJ process right now, where our judicial process is on the chopping block with the American government. So really, definitely, economic liberation. Let's have that. And that is all about really the data, tracking and making sure, focusing on where this goes. Thank you very much, Dr. Raji. I'll move on to Imran now. Imran, I don't think anybody can dispute the role of the diaspora in asking Ghana in 2016. And prior to 2016, the work that was done by the diaspora in really making sure that we go back to democracy in this country. and want to have one of the historic moments around the world of really ousting a dictatorship through the elections. Now, in that context, how do we see the diaspora really being having grievances against the Gambia, the country, in the process, in the role that they have been relegated to just the cash cow, and really not being considered in addressing that? Have we really, or are we really addressing their grievances and really what they are looking to have, like Dr. Bagi said, before they started, you know what, I'm pouring so much into this country and I'm not giving my due or what I want. How do we address that, Imran?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I will start, actually, I think some of that has already been addressed by Dr. Baji, but I will start and try to also contextualize it within the transitional justice framework. So we've said in the morning that Gambia's TJ process is being looked at as a model around the world. One of the reasons for that, I said here a couple of weeks ago, that I think one of the reasons was that we had access to the draft of the African Union's transitional justice policy in 2019, or sorry, even before 2019, when it was in the process of being developed. And that guided the framework that we created for transitional justice. Part of that, or at least a core part of that policy, is that transitional justice has to be about redistributive justice. And my experience in transitional justice over the years has been that every single conflict in Africa that I have at least looked at or written on and, or researched is one of two things: lack of equal access to power or lack of equal access to resources. So redistributive justice becomes a core part of that. Now, also another element of the AUTJP is that local ownership is a core part of what can make a transitional justice process effective, right? And I don't think the policy envisages local ownership to be restricted to geographical dimensions, right? And so let's look at what the diaspora contributed to transitional justice. For me, you know, if we remove ourselves from looking at TJ from this formal structural kind of paradigms that we look at it from, let's say truth-seeking. For me, Pandirimbai and the Freedom newspaper was the first truth-telling initiative that came out, even before this process. And the AUTJP again talks about formal and non-formal processes of truth-seeking, of addressing some of these authoritarian issues or conflict issues. And I see from that perspective that medium and a lot of other diaspora media were key in terms of starting to bring out the issues, seeking out the truth. And also, I think the second aspect of that is the fact that when the space here was, civil space, was restricted, it was again the diaspora whose role actually also contributed, even in terms of removing the government that was here. They played a critical role. In terms of contributing to the process, when we were at the TRRC, we went across Europe, we went to the US, we raised almost $1 million from the diaspora. That went towards the interim reparations. So the contribution is there. And one of the things then that TJ also expects is that it's designed to address the legacies of post-authoritarian or post-conflict issues. And that means you redress the grievances of the society. And again, the diaspora then has to be considered as part of the Gambian society. A lot of diasporans, in fact, left because of the situation that was on the ground over the 22 years that Jammeh was president. So addressing transitional justice was not only supposed to be restricted to addressing individual violations as what we saw at the TRRC, but community violations, right? And the diaspora is a key community that has been hugely affected. People that had sacrificed and had their properties in the Gambia confiscated or family members abused. So their interests have to be part of the redress. Now, the other issue that I want to raise is that transitional justice also, it's one of its main objectives is to rebuild trust, right? And so how do you rebuild trust with a demographic that is a huge resource to this country, other than making sure that their access to resources and power is also equally given? And so we see the struggle that we have currently in terms of even allowing the diaspora to be able to vote. It's a problem in terms of access to determining who governs the Gambia, because even though I might be away in the UK or in the US, I have a vested interest in this country and who runs the country, and I should have a say in that. So that is unaddressed. So that is a challenge that needs to be really looked at. If we are saying that transitional justice was supposed to transform us from an authoritarian, dysfunctional system to a democratic dispensation that is progressive, we have to address that. But also what Dr. Baji talks about in terms of the diaspora investing resources into the country just for it to evaporate like water from a kettle. That also the diaspora has a right for that to be addressed. And that requires a governance framework that at least ensures that what they are putting in is not put to waste, and that their issues and grievances are addressed. And so for me, that is the perspective. I think we really have not addressed that component of transitional justice. We look at transitional justice very narrowly, and I think that is going to be, if we look back at our process, unless we change direction, that is one of the things that we will regret, and that will be a shortcoming for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan. I love this panelist. They're staying within time. Thank you very much. And I couldn't agree with you more, really. The transitional justice is not just about addressing the harm that was done, but the cause of that harm. And a lot of the diaspora left during the 22 years, including myself. I left in 2002. At that time, with my family, I moved out of the country simply because of the frustrations at that time. And that had mostly to do with employment, how people were just being taken from outside and brought into the organizations and given jobs that they're not qualified for, and so forth. So getting people to come back really, or to stay, is really addressing those issues. The cause of the vetting is one of the things that we have to look at as well. So really, very core things that we have to look at this point in time, making sure that we're not, like I said, just addressing the harm that was caused, especially the human rights violations, but also the root causes, and in a transformative manner, not just go back to where we were, but how do we transform it so that we can leapfrog as a country into really better things, and making sure that the next generations, maybe within our lifetime, Dr. Baji, right? Hopefully. I'm also very not so hopeful about it happening in our lifetime, but keep hope alive. So I'm going to turn to Madi. Madi, someone who really talks about this a lot, right? We all know Madi Jabati and how he is very vocal and passionate about the contribution of the diaspora and all sectors, but particularly in diaspora. Should voices in nation building challenges include the diaspora? Should voices in nation building challenges of the diaspora be inclusive rather? Should we include them? What their voices, how important is it? Why is it important for them? Apart from, of course, Dr. Badi has mentioned the monetary aspect of it, but how do you see it as in the terms of human rights and promoting and protecting human rights? The inclusion of the voices of the diaspora.
Thank you. Yeah, because they are citizens. I'm sure of it, they are citizens. So that sometimes I think the nomenclature, diaspora gets us off track and clouds the issue. And so if one is to contextualize it or to oversimplify it, because diaspora, I think when I was coming, I heard Dr. Baji talk about migration as old as mankind. Because it's obvious, people will move. So that's not definite debate. But we can bring it very, very close to home.
You know, me, I'm from Boraba, but I'm in Banjo. Okay? And I guess a lot of folks are not from this hall, they're from somewhere. So the fact that I have moved out of Boraba, I'm in Banjo, in the context of Boraba, I'm in the diaspora. You know what I'm saying? So similarly, if you are in the United States, you know, as Dr. Baju was, in the context of the Gambia being in the United States, you are a Gambian diaspora in the United States. So imagine somebody said in Boraba that I cannot have a piece of land there, or I mean, I cannot be an alcalo in Boraba, or because I'm in Banjo. That is a problem. And I guess that imagination would not even arise. So I think that's how we just got to look at this matter. That I mean, apart from everything else, you know, the financial contribution, you know, the other contributions they can bring, as Imran was saying. But first and foremost, these are just citizens, and it is just normal. And that is also part of our progress. It's part of human progress that people move. You know, I mean, human progress is inconceivable without people from point A to point B and relocate and so on. So, you know, Chinatown is in New York because Chinese moved to the United States. So I think that is how we should perceive it. So that, therefore, our diaspora have an integral role and a right, fundamental right, to contribute to the governance of this country. And any attempt to limit that in any way, therefore, is undermining the governance of this country. I think that is the perspective we should have. And there's everything for us to gain from the diaspora, like it has always been in every society over time. All right, not just the resources, the ideas, the relationships, but also to make things work in terms of institutions in the home country, you know, and at home. And you know, he mentioned Freedom newspaper. Even before, the dictatorship ended, the diaspora was contributing. You know, we remember NAD, you know, the formation of NAD, how diaspora played in it. So the diaspora has always been integral part of our governance. And they recognize it, they played a role, and we recognize it, but it appears when now we got the change that we want, we now put obstacles for other objectives. And I think we need to call them out, and we need to stand against that, to say those who are denying, trying to limit the participation of the Gambian diaspora, you are not just denying the Gambian diaspora to participate in the Gambia, you are harming the Gambia, and you are harming us in the Gambia. You know, because when you look at it, in what areas are you trying to deny or limit diaspora participation in our governance? It is not just resources, because the dollars are coming in various ways. The support is coming. So it is in terms of decision making, in terms of, you know, the functioning of our institutions, in terms of the good governance of this country. All right. So I think, you know, as Imran said, governance fundamentally is governance. How do we create the governance structure system in which the diaspora would participate, not even as just diaspora, but would participate as Gambians. Yes, that Gambians everywhere in the world would have the means to participate. So what coordinations do we do? What engagements do we do? That is a matter for government to devise in terms of policy, in terms of structure and processes, you know, for the governance, but also in terms of individuals like you and me, but as organizations like Will and others, and even as businesses, how do we, and which is why that governance structure is important, how do we position ourselves? Because one of the things I see missing or weak still in the non-state sector is the limited coordination. So I'm happy Will has undertaken this to make this a subject of conversation. But what is the connection between Will and a diaspora group, for example? What is the connection between Tango or, you know, Anaket, you know, or all these organizations we have? How they link in with diaspora entities outside? Now, that also is something necessary for us to strengthen and validate the fact that the diaspora has an integral role, and a right to participate in our governance. So how do we do that? I hope this conversation in this room would go to the next steps, you know, because still now, diaspora are engaging. But how are we connected? So the coordination there is important. But the businesses also, how do they coordinate, among themselves to see, how do we facilitate, resource transfer, technology transfer, and, facilitate generally all of the things that businesses would need to function. The potential is there in the diaspora, and I think we recognize that. Nobody needs to overemphasize that. Yes, whether it's economic, social, political, educational, technological, health, and so on, it's there. So we don't need to do that. I think persons like Dr. Baji and his, outfit, if anybody is in doubt about the role, the significance of the diaspora in, changing and bringing progress to this country, that evidence is there. That this is an evidence that we need to maximize, to optimize, to translate into many Dr. Bajis and that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Marty. Definitely, like you said, the potential is there. Now, how do we tap into that potential? But more importantly, how do we coordinate? Right? How do we coordinate it? There is no doubt that the diaspora is contributing, has been contributing, and will continue to contribute, because, like Dr. Baji said, their families are here, right? Their families are here. They don't have a choice in the matter, in their contribution to this country. But should we just limit it to financial contribution? At some point, it will get really frustrating for them, and we don't want to get to that point. Now, I'm going to turn to Imran for a more specific TJ-related question because of your involvement in the TJ process. Imran, by the way, is also a diasporan who left the UK and returned home to work in the TJ process and has been really one of the very critical contributors as a diasporan in the TJ process. So I'm going to turn to could you just tell us, in your experience working in the TJ process, the pivotal role of women, really, in women from the diaspora, their contribution towards the TJ process, really, and share them with the audience. Please, thank you.
Thank you. So again, it comes to the same point I started with, and perhaps I should have highlighted earlier. So when we say the Gambia's TJ is a model at the moment, and other countries are studying, and I've had the opportunity to go to other countries doing transitional justice to discuss the Gambian transitional justice model. One of the key, factors of that success, of that pioneering model, has been the role of the civil society organizations in transitional justice. And so I was asked at some point to develop a practice brief on the role of civil society organizations in transitional justice, looking at the Gambia as a case study. And one of the things I actually found out, which was, I think one of the things that you highlighted when I did the interview with you, was the number of women-led organizations in the TJ process. And that was, I think, one of the key aspects of the successes of the transitional justice process. Just the other day, I was talking to somebody asking me, what did you do in the Gambia? What did you do right in transitional justice? And what were your challenges? And when I thought about it, what we did right mostly came from civil society, right? And that civil society was women-led, but not only women-led. Majority of those organizations were also women from the diaspora. Of course, we know we have a patriarchal society that is really restrictive for women in a lot of ways. And I think the experience is that most of these women came back with, in terms of their various areas of expertise and study areas, were a key part. So you had, for example, Fatou came and established an institution that really focused and pushed and emphasized on gender. Even the former executive secretary of the TRRC recently mentioned that in one of these panels that we had, that Fatou was one of the people who came in and really drew their attention to gender, inclusivity and mainstreaming in the process. But then you had, for example, Mariama that was at the TRRC but saw a gap in terms of mental health and psychosocial support, and stepped into the civil society role to kind of try to address that. But you had Anaket also, women-led, but did a core job in terms of memorialization, something that really I think we didn't understand the value of and trivialized in a lot of ways, and it had not only done that, but also simplified the process in terms of the digest that you did. So, in a nutshell, the experiences of women from the diaspora and their ability and confidence and the experiences that they had built from that experience came in especially handy for our transitional justice process, and it's still ongoing, right? And so I think that is also something, absolutely, you're right, that we need to recognize. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Jacob, I think I still have 5 minutes, right? I just wanted to also just throw this out to the participants here in the room. In the 5 minutes that we have, to share your thoughts on this. Expertise is not limited to the panelists and knowledge. So just 5 minutes to throw it out to the participants in the room. Your contribution in this really very important discussion about the role of the diaspora in the transitional justice process in the Gambia. Any hands? Yes, Flex, always reliable. And always very pertinent contributions. I think we need it for the, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Yusuf Taylor, one of those who returned to come back to our country in 2018. I came back home. So the diaspora has always been really doing a lot of work helping Gambia. And even I was at the press conference that the TRRC was having, and they were talking about the diaspora and how they supported in the funding of, even reparations, and Imran touched on it. So at least at that time when they reported, and I'm sure it might have been more, $899,000 had been contributed, almost, you said almost $1 million. And they were actually announcing that they were receiving more. So, perhaps, because I always say, if we all took money and we just said we give the victims money, and we say, that's it, take the money, go, that for me does not address the transitional justice process. There needs to be an element of, how could I say, some sort of give. It's beyond money, and also getting in for them to realize that it's a shared pain, the victims, perhaps, that's what I'm talking about now. So, perhaps maybe just throwing it to you, I know you guys are the ones, the diaspora who have come. How can more of this kind of support be made, for victims? I mean, from the diaspora for victims, because the reparation is stalling so much. And maybe also, if nobody says anything, talk about the representation, diaspora having the right to vote. Maybe somebody else, another panelist can talk about that.
No, thank you, Flex. Obviously, I'm private sector, so for me, everything is job creation, job creation, job creation. Don't give a man fish, teach him how to fish. I think there needs to be a very intentional focus in terms of even the private sector. Oftentimes, the victim, who are they? What skills do they have? Are we helping them get jobs that allow them to sustain their families? I think it's the same conversation around, people that went maybe back when came home. You can't give them just money. I think giving somebody a skill that allows them to have a dignified life is the best way you could sustain him and change his life in one generation. So by the time that person's grandchild is born, they may not remember or still harbor the trauma of their grandparent, because the opportunity that was given to them as part of the healing and transition process was actually a job, dignified pay. And it goes back to the diaspora. I think most diasporans don't know which diasporan or Gambian companies are providing employment as well too. So it's just following for me, give somebody a job, give them a skill, and then they'll be allowed to live a dignified life. Because I think the scariest part for me is the diaspora is changing. When I was young, my uncles and aunts, 5 or 6 of them could work on one social security number in America, one ID. So meaning it was 6 people who could earn a living to send money based on one person's immigration status. So it's actually becoming harder for the Gambians in the diaspora who are undocumented to have access to resources, money, education. But also you have the generational thing. The way I love Gambia, the way I am committed to Gambia is very difficult for my 7-year-old daughter. She's not connected to Gambia in that way. So when she's 25 and she decides that Gambia is not for her, she's not going to be obligated to send money home. So even from a remittance standpoint, that's going to go away. But now diasporans, 3rd generation Gambians really don't care about Gambia. There's no connection here. Their parents don't own businesses for them to come and inherit. Maybe my kids have an opportunity because they know their father now has a business and I want to leave the business and they're coming to visit. So we really need to follow how there's dwindling resources in other countries, but also here for the victims, for the people, how do we create an opportunity and an ecosystem that gives them dignified pay? And as much as I'm going to mention this because it matters, and I know Flex is aware, my company should have died last year. My company should have died last year. Not because of the idea, because sometimes I woke up and I felt like I chose the wrong company to bring this idea to. But Natula, because this is my country. And behind, it's not only a Ismail Abaji story, it's not an Inovrek story. There's so much pain from people in the diaspora who genuinely gave Gambia a strong effort. And oftentimes it's not the government, it's everyday Gambians who could literally destroy somebody's life worth, and it's just a Tuesday. And then when those people leave, they leave forever. So you block out a generation of their family members who will never contribute to the Gambia as well. But to answer your question, job creation. We need to know who are the victims that need support. Let's get them in dignified pay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can't agree more, Dr. Baji. So, you know, I'm not a fan of Israel at all, but Israel has a policy which is part of the governance system. Any Jew anywhere around the world, they have a policy to facilitate your movement to Israel. I'm sure when we listen to news, we have about the settlers and how they facilitate not just their movement, but their settlement in terms of housing and so on, but establishment also in terms of business and so many other things. Surely we don't have to do the way they do it against the Palestinians. But then it's just to highlight the importance of governance. A lot of diasporans, Gambian diasporans, have reached out to me personally, expressing their frustration. They would show me pictures that I was in the vice president's office, I was in the minister's office, I had this communication, I want to set up an agribusiness something, I want to set up some irrigation over there, I want to set up some company, and I need government facilitation, and it is not there. And I think that is a tragedy, really. We know Dr. Baji's experience as well last year. So it means a huge potential is available to us, a huge opportunity for the development of this country, which has been eroded simply because of lack of policy, lack of governance, and lack of political will to make sure that this happens. As it is in the business sector, it is the same in the political arena. You talked about voting. Why should we negotiate, discuss that today, the right of Gambian diaspora to vote, really? So I think ultimately it goes down to that policy governance. But then, as I said, I think given the situation we face, it is important, therefore, that engagement takes place within the non-state sector and coordination. because it appears we have to really stand our ground and go to another level to address the political and policy issue that is, the obstacle confronting us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marty. I think that's all. Are there other questions? Yes. Okay, as long as we have time. We don't have time.
Thank you very much.
We don't have time, so please can we make it just short and sorted? So we can get it for Jane and drivers out of here.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate you, and I'd like to add on what Dr. Baji said. Indeed, it's about everyday Gambia, and I work in government from the diaspora, and I can go on and explain some of the challenges and opportunities that frustrate. We come from abroad, of course, we're very frustrated at the speed and the attitude. So this is, diaspora has always been part of the transitional process. We are all part of the Panderimbai group, fighting for change. So what we need to understand is not to jump the due process. That's what I realized. My brother Madi talked about, people going to ministers presenting file. Gambians are comparatively, I just want to give an advice. Non-Gambians, when they come back, every day they'll come to our office, they'll ask for the processes. Gambians, they would like to bypass. Some will go to the minister so as to get the project approved. But they forgot that there are technicians like us who will send us your file for us for approval. So they are more interested in taking the pictures with the political leaders. But they say, these technocrats, they fail to understand. So Gambians will understand that. Now follow the due process and all the doors will be open. The rest is just attitude and action. As Dr. Hart said, Gambians have to be ready to accommodate. Coming back, there are differences in mentality, the patience, the adjustment. We see other countries that are leapfrogging. We also want to leapfrog. But the bottom line is managing expectations across the board. Let me stop here until further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very, very important points raised here across the board. And I think we must agree that, yes, we are talking about TJ, but the issue is more than that. We need to look at it from the top. Like governance, like Madi said. What are the strategies? What are the policies that are there? And really, yes, very important process, what you said, due process. But we must agree also that where's the due process? Nobody knows what the due process is in this country. You go to one office, one person, they tell you one thing, we go to another. But yes, definitely very important for the due process, but let us also acknowledge that those processes need to be revisited and upgraded, and there's so much has evolved over time. Since the people started going out, remember when I was young in Banjo, when people went out and they're coming back home, you have like a fleet of cars going to the airport to welcome you, and then they'll be honking from the airport all the way to your home to welcome you back home. That's different now, right? That's different now. So we must adjust, we must accommodate. Thank you very much for your time. And panelists, you are excused.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Auntie Sira, for moderating that panel discussion. And I would just like to comment, Auntie Sira, I know your panel is done, but I would just like to comment on what my former lecturer, Mr. Sankano, said. And I also have to agree with what you said, that the due process is not very transparent. Often, as a journalist, when you talk to individuals who are from the diaspora, they will actually tell you the opposite of what, my former lecturer, Mr. Sankano, said. They would want to follow due process as Gambians, but on the other hand, to them, it's the foreigners that do not follow the due process, because then when they want something, it's even easier for them than the actual Gambian who's from the diaspora that has come home to actually invest. So I think generally the due process is not very transparent and put out there. And sometimes government websites, often you go to a government website. I know my former lecturer, Mr. Sankano, thank you so much for the brilliant work that you're doing. Thank you. But still, they need to improve digitally. Because as people from the diaspora, they're not here physically. They need to do things digitally. Check a website, for example, purchase something online, make a request online as somebody from the diaspora to get the information in America or anywhere, process it, and then they get the job done. That is my opinion.
Yes, I just want to add. Most of the time, the diaspora come here and they have limited time.
Yeah.
Come here on holidays for 3 weeks. And most of the time, they're frustrated during that 3 weeks. There's a lot of preparation that could be done ahead of time. So if we can facilitate that, that could be a first step. And this is very doable over a very short period of time. Registering your business online, for example, putting in all the requirements. So definitely, it can be done. So kudos to you for your department, what you're doing.
Yeah.
But again, let's agree that there's a lot more that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And we take those action points. I think they will be very important.
It will be very
critical action points that we raised today.
Yeah.
And I hope we go with that commitment, including for us, even as civil society. And critical point that Madi mentioned about what is the question that he has. How is the diaspora engaged in this victim-led organization in the TJ process within our own organization?
Yeah.
Really, it's got me thinking about my own organization and how are we engaging the diaspora in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, that is why when this is put together, young people and people from the diaspora, then the marginalization is out. So this is a step in the right direction for Aniket, Fantanka, Will, and other civil society organizations who are working in transitional justice to also embrace individuals who are in the diaspora. Thank you so much, Antisira. Thank you. So moving on, now we will take a look at the role of youth in post processes. So here we will have a panel of very diverse and brilliant young people who will now talk about after the TRRC, what next for the Gambia. And Babuka Sahu, a round of applause for him. Babuka, we have Babuka as part of the panel. Babuka Sahu, Lala Ture. A round of applause for her. We're doing a lot when it comes to youth advocacy and the inclusion of women in generally all spheres of life in the Gambia. Thank you so much for the work. Aisha Jame, Aisha of Victim Center, and recently sworn in as a commissioner of the Reparations Commission. Is Aisha a round of applause for Aisha? Thank you so much for the work that you've been doing when it comes to transitional justice processes and serving as a voice for young people on there. Aminata Jaite. So Aminata fits both panels because she is a Chevening scholar. She's been away on studies in the United Kingdom for the past 1 year plus. So as a young person coming back now after 1 year, she's in a very good position to talk to us about post-TRRC and also as part of the Girls Agenda who work when it comes to sexual and gender-based violence in the Gambia. So looking forward to a good one. A round of applause for her. And yes, so now we have Mr. Sangmendi, who is my senior in the media, who will be moderating this session. Mr. Sangmendi, a round of applause for him. Oh, okay, it's not that Sangmendi, but still, he does look like a senior. Doesn't he look like a senior? No. Doesn't he look like my senior? You don't agree? No, young guy. Wabana. But thank you so much, Sang, for coming on and willing to moderate this session on the role of youth in post-TRRC processes. The floor is yours, Sang.
All right. Thank you so much, Jennifer, and then the previous panel for that wonderful discussion. So this panel is actually the role of young people in the transitional justice process in the Gambia. And then please allow me to sit on existing protocols and extend my greetings to all of you. My name is Sang Mendi, and then I'll be moderating this panel. I mean, I must say it's a dynamic panel and then a well-composed panel. So Aminata will be very happy to say that we have 3 young ladies, Yeah, on my immediate left is Aminata Jaite, and then after Aminata you have Baukar Sambu, Lala Ture, and Commissioner Isa Jame. So this panel seeks to explore the role of young people in the Gambia's transitional justice process, which is actually aimed at informing both domestic and diaspora perspective, and then also engaging and then encouraging a broader engagement of young people in the Gambia's transitional justice process. Just to give a context, Fat Balde has done a very good job in her presentation. The TRRC actually did a very commendable job investigating past human rights violation in Gambia from July 1994 to January 2016, and then they actually provided a detailed summary and a recommendation that the government definitely needs to look at in order to build a cohesive and then reconcile Gambia. And then in that context, young people actually play a very crucial role in the Gambia's peace building process, and also as highlighted in the African Union Transitional Justice policy of 2019, that young people are often at a crossroad in terms of conflict and authoritarian rule, which Gambia is not an exception. So therefore, looking at also the Gambia's population, we have a very young population, and then, which 40% or over 40% is below the age of 14, and then there is below the age of 15, and then we have like 24% increase from our last previous census. So therefore, this panel is actually to look at what the role of young people are, and then I will definitely want to bring a quote that the UNDP country resident coordinator actually said in her deliberation, that development must be owned and driven by the people. So therefore, in that sense, young people needs to be included in the process and what needs to be done. So in this discourse, and I want to look at it in three different dynamics. One is to look at the role of young people during the TRRC process, what is currently going on and what needs to be done. And then, lucky for us, we have people that worked with the TRRC, and then people that are continuously working with victims in the Gambia. Mr. Sambo is one of them, Lala is one of them, Aisa, and then of course, Aminata Jaite. So to start with, my first question will be directed to Mr. Sambo, who actually played a very integral role during the TRRC process, leading the Youth and Children's Unit at the TRRC at the time. So Mr. Sambo, we just want to understand, to have a broader understanding, what were the strategies that were used by the TRRC in order to engage young people, knowing fully well that this is the first time that Gambia is experiencing such a thing, and there's not been much information at the time. What were some of those strategies that the TRRC really utilized to make sure that the voices of the young people were included in the process?
Thank you very much. Greetings, everyone. I am very happy to be on this platform to share my experience, particularly when it comes to the role of young people in transitional justice, specifically on the TRRC. I headed the Youth and Children's Unit of the TRRC up to the time the work ended. But my involvement with TRRC started way back before the establishment of the commission itself. After the TRRC Act was enacted by the National Assembly, the only appointment that was done was the appointment of the Executive Secretary. And then the Ministry of Justice, in collaboration with National Youth Council and supported by UNICEF, embarked on a nationwide youth and children engagement. I was fortunate to be the lead facilitator in that nationwide engagement. The purpose of that engagement was understanding the greater percentage of the Gambia's population are young people. Therefore, we need to understand the views of young people with regards to the creation of the Truth Commission. Some things happen here that people are divided in terms of their beliefs about those things. Some said, yes, they are true, those things happen. Some said, no, they are not right. It's all false, all accusations. They never happen. So we want to hear the young people's opinion on that. So I led that nationwide engagement. Some people are in this hall who were in that nationwide tour. And we heard from the young people themselves. What do they think about the Truth Commission? We went to so many places. But from the young people, particularly those going to school, some of them will be like, when we were born up till now, we were made to believe Yahya Jammeh is the best president the Gambia would ever have. Because he has always been giving us money to party anytime he's on tour. He has children's way of thinking. He has been doing this and that and that and that for us. We agreed with them. But we also hear he was a killer, he was this, he was that. Is it also true? Now, if TRRC will help us to know that, we want it to come. So children were telling us that. The youths also were telling us their views about what they think. And then from the general view of all young people, they wanted this commission to come. And then Babagale was the only staff of the TRRC at that time. And in the whole engagement, we came up with certain communication strategies, because the lady who was facilitating it from UNICEF, a white lady, wasn't sure what methods we can use to effectively make children speak their mind. My involvement as president of Peace Ambassadors, we have been working with children, and we have developed some tools that we use when we want people to speak from their mind. So I introduced two tools. One was called the consent game, and the other one we call it bookmaking. In the bookmaking, where we will give each child, and even the youths when we engage them, a sheet of A4 paper, which will be folded in certain ways, and it will end up in a small booklet. On the first page of the book, we asked them to all define the New Gambia. That was in November 2017. Define the New Gambia. They will all independently define the new. They will draw anything, any image that represents the New Gambia to them. And on the second page, they will define the New Gambia. The third page, they will tell us where they think, where they want to see the Gambia in the next 5 years. And the fourth page, they will tell us what the role of young people are or should be in that 5 years. And interestingly, they all draw something. They all wrote very interesting things. And when it comes to defining their images, that was very interesting. So it was very effective. And the other one was consent game. We'll come up with some questions or some statements and allow them to agree or disagree with those statements. Let's say, for example, if we say all rights of children are guaranteed or are protected in the Gambia, some have, each will have a green card and a red card. Raising a red card will be disagreement, and a green card will be agreement. So they will all defend why they choose to agree or disagree. So that was how we engaged them before the Truth Commission started. And the commission was launched. Interestingly, 98% of the TRRC staff were all young people. I think the oldest among the staff were in the Research and Investigation Unit. That was the unit that has the highest number of staff. But I think about just 3 people who are beyond 35. Majority of them are very, very young people. So all these young people, in fact, I remember sometimes some people on social media were asking Dr. Babagale Jallow, what did you see in these young people? What experience do they have? For God's sake, Gambia is having TRRC for the first time. Why these too many young people? What experience? Baba's response was, there was no country that had TRRC twice. We all have it for the first time. So, and this work needs energetic people. And therefore, I have that confidence in the young people. So majority of the people, including even some who have served as unit heads, were young people. So my unit had the youngest. Lela was one of them. And Omar Champion Cham, Mariama Cham, and at the latter part, we had Sadal Dumbia. These are all young people. The strategy we used when the work of the commission started also was not to be sitting in the office and thinking for young people. We sit in the office very hardly for a whole 1 week. We are always in the field on outreach, meeting them in their schools, meeting them outside the school to engage them, to hear their views. Even when the hearing started, we were getting more opinions from the young people from outside. If you can remember, the first people who testified in the TRRC were only, if they speak in English, there was no translation in the local language. It is only when you are speaking the local language that you need translation in English. It was during our outreach that people told us, it's not everybody that is hearing English. Let's the commission start translating everything. And we came with that recommendation. Immediately the commission, that was a suggestion from young people that we have been engaging. Because we engage them in the conventional schools, we engage them in the madrasa schools too. But interestingly, another part that even attracted me more was the ghetto youth engagement. Because we thought of that too. This is a sector of young people, and I believe all of us will be guilty of that here. In most cases, when we are doing nationwide youth engagement, we target youths from youth organizations, youths from school, but we hardly go to the ghetto. And there's a lot of information in the ghetto. So when we started that ghetto youth engagement and beach youth engagement, we got a lot of frank discussion from young people with regards to their opinion. They will criticize the Truth Commission in our own presence,
And they will not say it nicely. They will say it exactly the way they feel it. And that is what we had wanted all the time. When we meet with young people like you, you'll be very diplomatic in your comments. But ghetto youths don't know that. They will tell us exactly what they want. If they are happy with Esafal or they are they are unhappy with him on anything, they will tell us. And when we come back, we give chance to the young people also to come to the commission during public hearings. That let them not only be seeing it on TV, but they should have the chance to come, because it's not everything that is shown on TV. But if they are sitting in the hearing room, so we put up a schedule where we'll be inviting young people from colleges, universities, outside school, and also from schools. We'll send our boss to pick them. They will be there. When they come, they are our responsibility. We'll provide them their breakfast and lunch and whatever they need to see. And interestingly, that is when some of them connect themselves so much, that so many things happen that people don't see on TV when people are testifying. So young people were really, really very much involved in the work of the TRRC from the starting of whether the commission should be existing or not. The young people supported the establishment of the commission. And they become the majority of staff, and they have not failed the Gambians. And that is one thing I can always boast of. I can beat my chest and say, the Gambian young people, when given the chance, will never fail this country. Because when people thought the commission was going to fail because of too many young people there, they proved that they can do it. And they don't need a university degree to do that. We had many young people in the TRRC who do not have a degree. In fact, when I started the work, I was already going to university. I did not finish yet. I was a student. Lala was a student. Omar Chan was a student. Cherno was a student. We are all students. And then what we did was we scheduled our time, that we make sure our timetable works in a way that at least 2 people will be in the office every given time. So we have been going to school and at the same time working. So we have been going through trainings, and that those trainings are what helped us to be able to do this work. But the young people, I am telling anybody who thinks young people cannot, that they can't. They can, if given the chance.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sambo, for that wonderful introduction. You actually made mention of something that is very, very important, that is the ghetto youth. Usually when we have engagements like this, we often forget about them. We don't include them in formal discussions like this and all those stuff. And then they have a lot to offer, you know. And then I think the best strategy is actually meeting them where they are in their ghettos, you know, with them and all those.
And sorry, just one thing, you know what happens at the ghetto? They smoke, they drink, they do everything when they are there. When we are going, we had our baradas, we had our attire, but we will always agree with them. We are coming. The only thing that will not happen there is smoking cannabis. And they will agree with us that within the time we spend with them, they will not smoke cannabis, but we'll buy cigarettes for them, we'll buy attire, and we'll do all that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I just want to turn to Lala from experience. I mean, what impact has youth engagement really impacted the outcome of the TRRC until where we are today? So, from your experience, what do you think really, you know, the youth engagement, how does it impact the work of the TRRC and its final report?
Thank you very much, Sam. I will just pick up from where Mr. Sam stopped. As people who worked with the TRRC for from 2018 through the time that it ended. I mean, some of us were not there when it ended, but we worked there for 2 years. And we've seen how young people were not just people who were interested in the truth-seeking process. Young people were actively involved in the truth-seeking process. And this was evident by even their interest to participate in the hearings. Like, we would have students who would want to be there when hearings happened. And we would have young people across the country who would come attend town hall meetings, who would take part in listening circles. And this is very important to mention, because when truth-seeking commissions happen, or when transitional justice processes happen, it's very common that the focus is usually always on survivors and victims, mostly who were affected directly, also indirectly, like family members, right? But keeping in mind the fact that transitional justice wasn't just to make sure the truth is known or to set to account the injustices that occurred during that dictatorship. It was also ensuring that young people were in the forefront, adding their voices, taking action, leading community change to ensure transitional justice. It was inclusive of youth voices, youth interests, youth realities in the Gambia. And this was important because at the end of the day, whatever recommendations that are made affects young people, it affects our lives, it affects our livelihood, it affects the ways in which we access reforms, institutional reforms, legal reforms, security sector reforms. So transitional justice wasn't just a process that happened in our country for us young people, and with all the young people that we worked with, we saw it as the real opportunity to bring about the change that we always wanted to see in our country, in our lives, right? And in terms of what impact young people were able to make, when we talk about the Never Again campaign in the Gambia, I like to associate it a lot with young people because we were in the forefront advocating for Never Again in the Gambia. And not just were we speaking up for this, we went into communities, we held dialogues, we promoted the Never Again campaign. I remember there was a time, I think in 2019, we had a nationwide caravan. Bright Stars was there. We were there as TRC staff. We had our bling. We had young people from different walks of life, artists, poets, TRC staff. And we went around all the regions. We went around communities. We did radio talk shows, and we bonded with people, held real honest conversations with people on why it's not just important that we have the TRC and the other transitional justice mechanisms, but the significance of people taking ownership, of people taking active part in these processes, because the Never Again campaign was not just something that was to come from the TRC, it was something that was going to represent our stance as a people and as a country of not accepting injustices, human rights violations to happen in our country again. And we've seen now how organizations like Our Nation, Our Voice, ICTJ, youth organizations are in the forefront, championing the cause of the Never Again. We've seen young people taking active part, playing active roles in influencing policies, in policy rooms, but also going back to the grassroots and engaging with people to ensure that they take active parts in governance, because political engagement is another key way through which people stop what occurred in the Gambia. A lot of political patronage happened in the Gambia for those 22 years. A lot of corruption happened, a lot of mismanagement of funds happened. And we've seen young people in the forefront engaging at policy levels, at grassroots levels, through advocacy strategies as well, young people engaging to ensure that this does not occur again. And we've seen how for young people, this has not just been through words, it has been through actions. We've seen young people take on the streets. We've seen young people raise their voices. We've seen young people refuse to be intimidated by systems that will perpetuate what happened in the past, right? And for me, all of these are significant progressive steps towards achieving the Never Again agenda in the Gambia, because it's not just enough to set the record of what happened in the past. The most significant thing for me now is how do we move on from that? How do we move forward? How do we ensure that we are building systems, we are strengthening institutions, we are reforming institutions, we are building capacities, and we are empowering our young people to be active voices of change. So they are there in the forefront, making sure what happened in the past doesn't happen in the future. What we had to live through, our children or the future generation does not have to live through. And beyond just that, we've also seen young people working, for example, in the post-TRC unit. We've seen young people work within civil society organizations who are going into communities and talking to them about the post-TRC, right? So making sure that our work and our involvement didn't just stop with the TRC, but in the post-TRC process as well. We're holding government to account in terms of implementation of recommendations. We're making sure people are engaged and are well informed about the recommendations, the different volumes of the white paper, and what they should look forward to. We're also raising voices and concerns about the need for reparations to go beyond financial compensation, to ensure there's national healing, national reconciliation. We've seen organizations like Peace Ambassadors, Peace Hub, going into communities where there's still some level of sensitivity because of things that happened in the past. So all of these are significant things that young people are doing to ensure there's continued engagement after the TRC and the transitional justice process.
Right, thank you so much. obviously continuous engagement is something that is very important, and then I think that's why having this conversation right now is something that is very timely, and then we thank Will for that. Isa, you work with the Victim Center and then appointed as a commissioner to the Victims Liberation Commission. I mean, how has it been working with young people on experience from the Victim Center, engaging them when they're receptive, skeptical about the process, and then what lesson have you learned from that, and how can that be improved, especially in your work at the Reparations Commission?
Thank you very much, Sang. I'll be so happy to talk a little bit more around the involvement of young people, but then I'll take it from the perspective of victims that are young. I think for the most part, when we talk about the involvement of young people, we tend to forget about victims who were directly affected and are young people. I think these people are really important in the conversation of the transitional justice process, because if you look at it, these are the ones that support their parents who have one way or the other been violated. You have young people who have supported their fathers who went through prisons and they were being tortured. And for the most part, they have been strength to their loved ones. They have been strength to their parents. They have been the ones who support their parents during their statement taking processes. They have been ones who have supported their moms who lost their husbands through their healing process and through that journey of them not giving up hope. So these young people have been really crucial in the process and in the conversation of ensuring justice and accountability. Because for the most part, when, for example, somebody whose father is no longer there and that the mom obviously maybe is no longer capable to even talk about the experience of his or her parent or her husband, sorry, their kids are the ones that will come and give their statements to the TRRC. They come to the Victim Center to support their parents in giving their statement, ensuring that all their needs are met. I think these young people, I would always want to say kudos to them, because without them, we will not get to this point of knowing even what happened to their loved ones. Because for the most part, you've seen some of the people whose rights were being violated had died, or are not even capable to even talk about their experiences. So their kids are still with them, but sometimes I feel these young ones have been forgotten. Just recently, I had an encounter with the daughter of Nogoinjai, and sadly, this young girl has suffered through the violation of what her mom had suffered. Because when her mom was sick, she was the one who single-handedly was taking care of her mom. And I think these young ones need serious psychosocial support, because they've taken up a burden which just happened to them like that. It was something that they never wished for. And they're still going through this experiences of the trauma that their parents have gone through. Now it has transferred to them. And I think for the most part, if you look at the transitional justice framework, victims of enforced and disappeared their kids, how are they being included in the conversations of justice and accountability? I know this conversation is more like what we've done in terms of including young people, but also we cannot also sideline the fact that we have some young people that are going through violations that their parents have gone through and they're still relieving these violations. How can we incorporate psychosocial support to support these young kids? How can they be supported in terms of the trauma that their parents have left behind? How can we further support them to be part of the conversation, to create more advocates of change? In as much as young people are concerned, I also feel these young ones are also very important in the process, because they should be there to support, to continue the legacy of their parents, to continue the justice process, ensuring that their parents get justice at the end of the day. And in terms of coming back to your question with regards to what contribution has young people what contributions are we doing in terms of the post-CRC process with regards to the participation of young people. At the level of the commission, as you can see, we have 3 people who are young people. We have Commissioner Mane and Commissioner Ture, and myself, who are selected as commissioners to work at the Reparations Commission to represent the young ones. As a commission, we would obviously have, though we haven't really started work in terms of engaging people, but we are currently developing our policies. And we have policies around young people. We have gender policies that we're currently developing to guide the commission's work around the involvement of young people. And obviously, we'll also have a unit that will be responsible to engage the young people in terms of what reparations would look like in a broader context of transitional justice, and also how these young victims would be included in the reparations programs. Because if you look at it, most of the victims who had died and had left their kids, they need to go to school. How can the commission support them in that aspect of educational support? How can the commission support them in the aspect of realizing their dreams as young people? And also, when you look at the young ones that went through sexual and gender-based violence, how can we reintegrate them back into the society? How can we provide the necessary psychosocial support needs that they would need to go through that phase of the traumas that they're going through? So all of these things are things that as a commission we are going to do. We're going to include young people as much as possible. And if you look at the combination, obviously, of staff, we haven't really hired like the entire secretariat, but us commissioners that are young, we will ensure that we have a good representation of young people in the commission, and the voices of young people will be on the table when decisions are being made. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aisa. As something that's very important, because obviously you're going to talk about issues of transitional justice without including the voice of the young people. I mean, you work with civil society organizations, especially looking at sexual and gender-based issues in Gambia, on the rights of women, and then and a lot of other things. From experience and then your interaction with survivors, or victims, do you think the voices of the second generational victims is really hard? And then what were the challenges? And then what are some of the things that definitely needs to be done? Obviously, we know there are some stereotypes, some stigmas here and there, but then from experience, what were the challenges that you guys encountered in your work? And then what is the way forward?
Thank you very much, Sang. There is always a problem being the last person to speak because you feel like a lot has been said. And thank you so much to my fellow panelists. They've actually touched a lot on the discussion. Working from the perspective of a women-led organization, when issues of gender-based violence have been discussed, I think mostly we focus on the primary victims, as opposed to looking at what consequences it has further on other people around them. But generally on the issue of gender-based violence, I think there were lots of conversations around it, and also people not actually believing the stories of women who stood out or who stood up to actually confidently say, I was abused. We saw the Me Too movement when Tufa came to the commission and she spoke about her experience, the backlash that came on top of it, and how people were condemning her and not actually understanding her story or believing in her story. And I feel like that experience on its own would have likely discouraged a lot of women or a lot of young people who would have actually come out openly to say, okay, I was abused. Although I know there were opportunities for people to testify privately, but probably somebody would have actually wanted to come to public to talk about their experience, but because of that, the person would have chosen otherwise. I think the main challenges around sexual and gender-based violence reporting, especially during the TRC, would be people not believing in their stories, because even after that, a lot of backlash came from people who actually stood up to talk about their experiences and also talk about how they were affected by the system. The other aspect we also forget a lot about is the psychosocial effects that come with being a victim of sexual and gender-based violence. Aisha mentioned this bit of the support, And I think generally this is what we struggle with as a society, having experience working directly with victims. Most of the times we don't accept that people are going through psychosocial issues when it comes to dealing with abuse. We think people, women or young girls have been too much in terms of changing habits or having mood swings, or they're just being unnecessarily reactive to a particular situation that doesn't actually warrant it. I think another problem would be the bit of silencing women who would be going through these experiences because you feel like there's no adequate support needed. And the fact that support is not provided, but people can actually keep bringing these experiences back to you, and there is the bit of re-traumatization. You talk to a victim, and the person said, "Okay, this is what I'm going through." There is so much backlash to it. There is no solution to it, and someone else is talking to you again. I remember in 2017 or 18, we used to have these online forums. Babuka used to participate. I think there was a time Aisha also participated. So there was a time we had an experience with a young woman who said there was a bit of re-traumatization she was going through because a lot of people were talking to her about her experience, especially at the community level. And this was not 100% a TRRC this was not 100% an experience from the former regime, but it was generally a sexual and gender-based violence issue. The people had to take her through the experience continuously, and there was no adequate support offered. So the bit of re-traumatization also happens where victims are not offered the adequate support that they need, but people keep talking to them about their experiences continuously. The other thing I also want to bring on board is the bit of society. I think what people can learn from the experience of TRRC is how our societies or our communities try to massage or try to accept sexual and gender-based violence issues by making it normal. We think it's not happening, or somebody who is trusted and is in government is not capable of doing that, or probably this person is so influential. When I talk about my experience, it's going to be problematic, or they already have a voice over me. So I think this is something that the society should actually take into consideration, that believing in survivor stories is their right, and also we don't have a place to judge their experiences, but also we should be our own protectors. We should not give a space to a community or a society that women are not actually given opportunities to talk about their experiences. Also, I want to commend the work of women-led organizations, especially organizations that were established as a result of the TRRC experience or as a result of the Gambia Transitional Justice. Almost all of these organizations are women-led organizations, but also victim-led or survivor-led. And they're bringing their own lived experiences and also their own stories into the advocacy. And this, I believe, will help in terms of data, but will also help in terms of bringing real evidence to the advocacy. We are not in a situation where people will be like, okay, this evidence is imported, or they're taking examples from other countries or other places. These are people who have lived their experiences, and they're actually bringing those experiences on the ground to actually make people believe that, okay, these are real problems that are happening, and it is not even happening. It is not happening from a distance. It is within our community, and it is something that we do not have to forget, or something that we have to condemn. Basically, this is it, and thank you so much for the opportunity. And it's a reminder that everybody has a responsibility in terms of protecting women and girls, but also making sure that we believe in their stories and contribute to ending gender-based violence, and also making sure that the occurrences or the stories from the TRRC do not repeat itself in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will want to give you there for you highlighted something that is very, very important, especially, right now in this current situation, post TRRC, obviously, we are looking at issues of accountability, going to court prosecutions and all those stuff. And then if you look at the TRRC 16 volume report, volume 10 specifically look at issues of sexual and gender-based violence and all those stuff. And then obviously, let's say if accountability should take place in Gambia, which we are all anticipating, bringing victims forward, survivors forward to come and testify is something that a lot of people obviously say, okay, we don't want to come forward because, for example, issues of, okay, possibly there is no victim protection, especially in our open courts nowadays and all those stuff. What do you think can really be done to make sure that a system is created where survivors, especially survivors of gender sexual gender-based violence can be encouraged to come forward if the time arises to come and testify in court or any other process that needs to be done.
Thank you very much for that follow-up. I think the first thing should be providing safe spaces for people to report. The environment has to be conducive. You cannot just tell me, okay, I have to come and talk about my experience when I know the implications of talking about my experience. And quite a lot of times this happens and people are weighing their options. Should I talk about it? What will happen after I talk about it? Will there even be justice? So there has to be safe spaces provided and people have to believe in these spaces, right? Sometimes you talk to someone about your experience or you talk to people about what you're going through and the next minute it's on the media. There is no victim protection. There is no protection about your identity or your experience. And these are things that should be in consideration. Safe spaces in terms of creating a conducive environment, but making sure that people are also held accountable for violating those safe spaces in terms of victim protection, in terms of accountability, but in terms of making sure that people are okay to talk about their experiences and they will be assured that there will be protection in terms of them expressing themselves or talking about their experiences. The next thing is about bringing perpetrators to book. What happens after I talk about my experience? We've seen the case with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Now the recommendation or the observation was that there has never been a case of child marriage conviction in the Gambia, for example. And the conviction on FGM sparked so much controversy. So people are thinking about all of those incidences happening. What if I talk about my experience or report this issue or participate in this process and there is no justice for my experience? The other option would be I would rather not talk about my own experience because there is no point or there is no use talking about it. The next thing is also about emphasizing on victim protection in terms of legal instruments. And I think the National Assembly or the government will be very key in this process, making sure that our legal instruments are strengthened to provide protection and support in terms of privacy, but in terms of making sure people's data are protected and also people's information. Additionally, there should be continuous sensitization as always. People have to know that talking about your experience could save another person's life, or talking about your experience is actually your right. Nobody has to condemn you or nobody has to put you down, but it's just that you need an opportunity to express yourself. And sometimes, almost at times, there is healing in that. When people talk about their experiences and they are not being judged or they are not being caged, there is so much healing in that because at least you're letting go of something. And that also adds to the issue of evidence and data because when people talk, we document. When people speak up, we know this is the reality which is happening, and that evidence could be used for future advocacy or for lobbying for funding to impact more lives or to do a lot of other things around sexual and gender-based violence. And the government has a stake in this, especially in terms of legal instruments, which is very important. But our communities have a bigger stake in terms of believing in survival stories, making sure we create safe spaces, but also making sure that people are not judged in talking about their experiences. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Aminata, for that. So I will want to turn to Mr. Sambo just to wrap up. I see that Jennifer is signaling me. What should be done in order to continuously have your people engaged in the process? Because often at times, especially after the TRC completed their work, I mean, many people will tell you that they are not being informed, they don't know what is going on. So there's a little bit of disconnection and all those stuff. So what do you think needs to be that we should do right now to make sure that there's continuous engagement of young people in the process in order to have that inclusive voice?
I think we should be doing more conversation about the issue. Because for myself, from experience, since after the work of the TRRC, it's just recently and through Will that I've been recalled to share my experiences and my work at TRRC or to be participating in post-TRRC engagements. I've seen a lot of activities happening. Sometimes even talking about young people, but my unit, I haven't seen Lala in most of the such engagements. So I think what needs to be done is we engage people more and more because things are happening, but because we are not communicating, people think nothing is happening. Already there is a Victim Reparation Commission where Aisha is a commission, but you go around the country, a lot of young people are not aware that that commission is even existing. If we talk about the prosecution, what level is it? The young people, information is not reaching to them. So I think civil society organizations like WIL and all organizations should try and engage the young people more and more conversations, because the more informed they are, the more they will limit or even stop speculating. If you don't talk to them, they will speculate, and what they say is what they will believe in. Thank you.
Imran, I'll just interrupt you there shortly. Sorry about that. So I am aware that there is a training happening at the OIC Center here. So it's a fire training. So with the fire training, we might have an announcement which says please evacuate or something. So you don't have to evacuate.
Okay.
Like, don't panic. Are we together?
Yeah.
Like, you can hear something like that. They're just having an exercise somewhere. It does not affect us. There's no fire or anything. So, chill. It's fine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that. Turning to Lala, I mean, Sambu made a very good point that continuous engagement, that we need to have the conversation going in order to engage young people. And then, if you look at the statistics, a lot of these young people are still going to school, they are at university, Gambia College, and all those stuff. What do you think is the role of school system, civil society, and then also, the media in order to continuously informing these young people? Because to be honest, I mean, we have a lot of them using social media nowadays, and then, I mean, so from experience, what do you think that we definitely need to do having these groups, that is the civil society, schools, and then the media, to continuously help in informing young people about the transitional justice process, especially the post-DRC?
So Lala, we can have this. Stop this.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I'll do my best to summarize, even though that's not my strength. But yeah. I think the most important actor in that question would be first the government. I think that people are owed transparency. So when you talk about the roles that schools, civil society, and media can play, it has to come from an intentional step that is started by the government. So there has to be something that media has to go with, schools have to go with. So if the post-TRC unit, I understand now they have developed a communication strategy that guides their engagement with different actors, external actors, internal actors. And I think that that communication strategy should be able to guide information sharing with the media, but also with other actors, including schools where children can receive information or young people can receive information, and also with civil society as well. Because like Sambo has said, you go around the country and people ask you questions. Oh, I told you right? And I think it's very important that we are communicating to these people, because we owe Gambians transparency, we owe Gambians answers. So while it's very commendable that the government has put in place mechanisms and have started working towards implementation, have started working towards reparations, they also need to make sure this information is available to the public, that they make use of radio stations, community conversations, they make sure people are going to communities and having outreaches and grassroots conversations, so people know. The same way we reached out to them when we did TRRC, that's the same way we also need to make sure we're putting in place intentional measures to ensure we're reaching back to them now to make sure they're informed on where we are at, what we intend to do, what we intend to achieve, and the roles that they can play in this process as well. And just to close that with the fact that I think we're at a point, we're at a crossroads as a country, right? And I feel like a lot of people would like to know, this whole transitional justice process that has happened, what has come out of it? What's happening with the recommendations? How are victims? How are we seeking redress? How are we making sure there are prosecutions? How are we making sure there's accountability, there's justice? But also, how are we making sure people understand how this justice is going to be delivered to them, right? And also making sure the post-TRC unit, their work doesn't just stop at communicating this to the public, but also employing strategies that ensure healing, reconciliation, psychosocial support, like Isa said, are provided to the people that need them. And I'm sure this is, in a part of their work, it's a part of their mandate, it's a part of the Commission's mandate as well. But let's make sure this is communicated to the people and people have a better understanding of where we are at and where we intend to get to as well.
Thank you so much, Lala, for that. And then I will want to stop here because the time is over. So thank you so much, the panelists, for taking time to participate in this panel discussion, and to all the audience. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for them. That was a really, really good one. And like Sang said, Aminata will be happy that there's 3 women. I'm glad. It should have been all women. Even. Yeah, I said so. Wow, it should have been all. No problem. If we have, we're okay with it. We will be definitely okay with that. So we will be opening the floor for just general reflections before we wrap up. So we will open the floor to probably 3 people just to give us general reflections on the day from Fatu's presentation, which has to do with the overview of TRRC and the recommendations to the second panel on diaspora and to the final panel on youth-related matters. So we will just open the floor and take 3 people, and they can share their reflections quickly before we wrap up here. So the floor is open for reflections the entire day. Anything that you want to put across, recommendations that you have, what have you learned today, moving forward, and the list goes on. So the floor is open for reflections now. Yes, we have a hand over there. Yes, you can stand up, introduce yourself, and yes. So there's a mic. There's a mic here. So make sure to summarize this as much as you can, just so we'll be able to have more people their reflection.
Good afternoon. My name is Adeline Sonko. I just have one recommendation and something to consider. Yes, I'm kind of confused. I have that 86% of the recommendations that the DRC made has been achieved. Honestly, I think this is the perfect forum to show how disappointed a bit I am, because considering the tenure of years that has passed, those recommendations is the only hope that these victims have. If these victims needs justice, then these recommendations has to put into place. As we are discussing on transitional justice, it is said justice delayed is justice denied. And fear justice here what column, let justice be served, even the heaven falls. How do we serve this justice to these victims? The best thing we could do is the people that hold these perpetrators accountable. The recommendations that they made, it's very important for the government to look into it and make sure these recommendations are put into place and fast track it. That particular action is going to contribute in the trust that these victims have in the government. But then considering the amount of years since 2021, we are in 2025, only 6% of those recommendations has been approved or achieved. That is a huge disappointment. Considering the amount of populations that the Gambia have, we are very small. So by right, this thing has to be achieved within a year. So I am urging on the government, and I also call on the women in liberation and leadership to, push, because you guys are the only hopes we have. I alone talking cannot achieve anything. People sitting here cannot achieve anything. But these organizations that have trust are the only people that can push the government so that these recommendations are put into place. So that is my recommendation, and that is my contribution.
Okay, I'm there. Who else thinks that the process is slow? Because remember, she talked about the fact that sometimes that's why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I am Jasong Sanyang, and I'm here on behalf of the National Human Rights Commission, the body mandated to monitor the implementation of the government white paper on the TRRC recommendations. So I think it's also very important to make certain clarifications here with regards to the monitoring and the implementation. So the report that has been cited by many is not is has happened, like say for example we were doing this May 2020, 2023, May 2024. So May 2024 to May 2025 report is in process. So right now, maybe to be fair to the implementing entities and the government, of course we know the implementing entities within government, but civil society's role is to support, to be a complementary to the process. So a lot has been done, but we have a multi-stakeholder committee on this implementation. So the different entities are sending in their updates of what has happened so far within this period. That's May 2024 to May 2025. We are working on that. I'm part of I work with my colleague in the office to actually compile these things and work on and draft the report that we are to share with the National Assembly and with partners as well. So as at now, yes, the safest thing would be to cite that report, but also to be fair, is to say a lot has been done. For example, there's been some of these acts, the Special Prosecutors Act has been enacted, the Special Accountability Mechanisms Act, the process of recruitment or the process of the selection for the special prosecutor is in progress, and after that, the government has shown commitment in its actions to do the staffing of that office, to have a premises for the office. These are all things that are ongoing. For example, NAS has been working with the other partners to ensure that there is medical care for the victims of the alternative treatment, those that are specific to the side of HIV and AIDS. So a lot has happened, but until the most recent report, that is the report for the for the reporting period May 2024 to May 2025 comes out, we can be really so. And then that process is happening. The updates are coming in. We do this through several things. That is, they would give us the updates. We will also have a desk review. We do research to find out. We follow up on the publications that are happening, that are coming. So all of these things need to be compiled and a report be drafted, so that we can certainly say that these. But for now, I don't think it's going to be possible to say. Yeah, it's going to be possible to say. So the report that we are citing, kind of the time there's a lot of things has happened, a lot of developments happen. Yeah.
Is the first person to respond. Representative of the I'm not sure if you were around when we were in Gambia. So we made reference to the report, which year it was. And in my presentation, I also acknowledge these other efforts that are presently ongoing, like all these mechanisms, the framework that are being established, reference to that. And I am also aware of other ongoing processes in advancing the knowledge. But as you rightly say, for us to make reference, we cannot reference a document that we haven't seen. That is not public. And of course, we are acknowledging that the government is making efforts in the implementation of the TRRC process, but we must also keep reminding about these challenges that are continuing to happen presently. We must also acknowledge the fact that for victims, maybe for me and you, we think that the process is moving, but for the victims, they do not feel like the process is moving, particularly when it comes to issues around accountability, when it comes to issues around reparations. Most victims that we work with at the CCSO level would tell you that I walk around and I'm seeing perpetrators, people who have committed crimes, are walking free, and nothing is happening to them. You will we go to the communities, we work with victims directly. We know that there are so many victims that are sick, that are not able to do things that were doing before, that are even fearful that they will not be alive to see justice or to benefit from the reparation. So yes, while we do acknowledge that the process is moving, we cannot just clap and say that the 6% is okay, or that, so we need to keep emphasizing the need for these processes to keep moving forward. Because as I said, we are in a better position to say that it's moving. For the average victim, they do not see the process moving. And again, these conversations are to remind us as citizens, but also to put a point to the government that there is a responsibility, whilst we do acknowledge that the progress that has been happening, we must keep stronging that the process is slow and we need to keep. That is what advocates do. Even if the work is going on, we have come all of them first look down. So like Martha said, we're seeing it this way, but then they're seeing it that way. So any other reflection here?
We are seeing it the same way.
No, I know we're seeing it the same way, but I'm just echoing the fact that we are not direct victims, like you mentioned. They are the ones who are affected directly, and because they are affected directly, then, they have a right to say this is slow and this is how we want it. Yeah, so
I'm here.
okay, we can have
Good morning. My name is Yamanda Haidara. I'm here for Think Young Women, the Gambia. So I would consider myself lucky because I was part of the post-TRRC data collection that was done by UTG and UNDP recently. And from what we've found out, many Gambians, they think they are left in the dark. So many people will tell you they don't even know about the white paper. It surprised us. They don't even know that the TRRC gave recommendations to the government and the government responded with a white paper. They don't even have a clue about that. They don't know that their progress made. I would always say an impact without visibility is not an impact because people don't know what's going on. Gambians said, from what we collected, they were in the process of the TRRC. Everybody saw what was, heard what was happening. They were in the dark, but people came out. They said what happened to them. So now, after everything that they said, what's being done, they want to know what's happening. So you can't say, as a government, you're making an impact. You're implementing what they said, but not telling the people what's happening. You can't write a white paper in English. What from most of the people's complaint was, they can't write a white paper in English, even if we tell them there's a white paper. But the white paper should be written in all local languages. It should be communicated to people. People have to know what's happening. They have to understand the languages. There was a woman in Banjul who told me, "Suma dom, buga na TRRC, dama ko don deglu, xamna lu xew ci dëkk bi. Waye yene suñu làkkee English duma ko dee dégga. Duma dee understand gaay lu ñoo wax." And I told her about the white paper. She said, "Okay, so nekkee white paper bi amna." I told her I would maybe help you, send you the white paper and all that. She said, "Su nekkee sen nga mako sax duma understand lu gaay di wax because man dégguma English." So I think it's important to consider that we have so many Gambians that are not educated. If such things want to be shown to the Gambians, we have to tell them that yes, you are Gambian. Even if you are not educated, you have right to understand whatever is happening. So I think the government of the Gambia should work on that. Visibility is very important for the Gambians to know what's happening. You can't say you're making an impact when the Gambians don't even know what's happening. Use the social media. We're in the 21st century. Use social media. Use TikTok. Everybody's watching TikTok. Use platforms to tell people what's happening. So yeah, that was my contribution.
Thank you so much. During the PRR proceedings, we did have several local languages, obviously. And our recommendation now is that the white paper should also be translated in all local languages so that everybody is aware of what the government white paper and the recommendation. So I believe Will is here. They're taking note of this. This is an area that they can look into. Any other reflection?
Yes, I am Ibrahim Dabo from Men for Equality. Yes, we can all argue that transitional justice processes take so much time, but what the victims need is reassurance. Reassure them that the processes are being taken, this is what is being put into consideration. But like she said, if the victims do not know what these processes are, at what level they are, it's going to be a problem. Now, they will doubt the government's will in ensuring that the justice is served. They don't care about all these processes that they are mentioning. The processes, at what level they are, the victims might not care about that. What the victims need is to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book and ensure that they're behind bars. But all of these processes needs to be fast-tracked. If not, it's going to bring another chaos from the victims, and that is going to defeat the purpose of the transitional justice that we are all talking about here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have a reflection on reconciliation? We are also forgetting a very important aspect, which is reconciliation. Does anybody have anything to say in relation to the reconciliation aspect of this process?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. I think it came in time. My name is Zainab Low. I am a secondary victim of enforced disappearances, and I've been working with the TJ process from the onset when we were doing the consultations for the TRC process. And let me just speak about that issue you spoke about, reconciliation. For me, as a victim, I feel it's very sensitive. And working with victims for the longest, it is not something that the victims are ready to delve into. Because like a number of people have emphasized here, a lot of the recommendations have not been implemented, especially when it comes to the issue of reparations. Victims don't want to reconcile if reparations is not given. Victims are not ready to reconcile if justice is not accorded. I don't think we've gone to the point where victims can reconcile with the with what has happened to them for a number of reasons. One of them being, I think what the state has failed to do is issue a public acknowledgement of what has happened. In as much as we can argue that all of these processes are acknowledgement of what has happened, there is also that need for acknowledgement and apology to the victims, to give them back their dignities. And I speak from the heart because I've lived it. I understand how it feels. Thank you. When it comes to the slow pace of the implementations, it's a slap on our faces to say that something has been done. Out of 262 recommendations, say 16 has been implemented and you want an applause, I'm sorry, we can't do that for you. Because each and every one of us is living the trauma that we cannot explain. And looking at most victims who are going through this, it's disheartening. Let's talk about the issue of enforced disappearance, because this is what I live. We have a number of victims from the November 11, coup plotters who have been exhumed for a number of years. Nothing has been said so far. And these victims, these families are living with that constant pain of not knowing what has happened to their families. The remains are lying somewhere. And this is a new context to the Gambians. We've not lived this before. So you expect victims to live with this trauma and not get the proper information as to where and how these things are going to be done. It's disheartening. understanding that again that we don't have these laws and we're trying to build the SAM and the SPO to support the reforms is another thing. I understand the frustrations when it comes to the victims, but also I understand the limitations of the state because I work with civil society, and so we wear two hats. We also have to find a way of managing expectations because when it comes to these issues of reforms, it takes a long time. Let's take the case of Hussein Habre that had gone through in Senegal. It took them 20 years to ensure that justice is served. But do we have the capacity in the Gambia as well, to mitigate these issues? How do we also ensure that the victims are also informed of how these processes are going through? It takes a lot. It's a lot of work. It's very tiring. But it needs to be done. We have to go through this process if we want to transition, if we want to ensure the guarantee of non-reoccurrence. Another thing I want to recommend here is we have a lot of youths here, and I just want to recommend that I'm very delighted to see the participation of youths in this process. I just want to encourage that we continue it because the dialogue has to continue. And again, we have to get the public buy-in in as much as the victims are affected to ensure that the guarantee of non-reoccurrence is certain. Everyone has a part to play. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I just want to add, I appreciate Jayan's question about reconciliation. In most times when we talk about PRRC, the post-PRRC of reconciliation aside, I think I appreciate also Zainab's comment. One thing with our context, it is important in TJ to look at context. Our context is very specific, but also our violations in the context. The state has a responsibility. So if we talk about reconciliation, the state has a responsibility. As Zainab has pointed out, we are still waiting for a public apology from the state because these crimes, it doesn't matter that it was Samba or Carter or whoever that committed. But the reality is, it was under the state that these crimes were committed. And I think one thing that also we are not putting a lot of emphasis on, there are certain communities that these violations destroy the fabric. You go to some Gambian communities because of the violations that happen, because of the close, limited communities that we have. Communities are completely divided because of violations that happen. We work at the community level. We go to some communities where they tell us that we don't go to each other's funerals. We don't go to each other's naming ceremonies. This is happening in Gambian societies, and us as a nation, we are not acknowledging this. For me personally, working at the community level, I think I see Gambia being more divided today than it was like when I was growing up. The Gambia I knew and what is happening. Again, this is something we are not acknowledging. We are also not acknowledging the ripple effect, the tribal tension that is happening in our country. This was breeding during the dictatorship. The current politicians are taking advantage of the legacy of this tribal division, and we are seeing how that is affecting us as a nation. But again, we are not talking about this because Gambia as a nation, we are very good at being in denial and not acknowledging. And finally, on the issue of justice, when you speak to victims, justice means different things to them. I have spoken to some victims who will tell you, particularly around the witch hunt. Some communities will say to you that for me, justice, I want people in my community to know that I'm not a witch. Because they were accused of being witches. That stigma still remains. For those people, whether you prosecute Janet or other named person, that stigma that they, in their communities, they are viewed as witches, is never going to change. The issue around stigma with people living with HIV. What that happened, and I think this is particularly important for young people. HIV incidents rise in this country among young people in the age of 16. That is this population. But how many young people here are being educated about issues around HIV and STIs? When I was going to primary school, used to have these classes where we knew properly, where we knew about these issues. Nowadays, this is almost non-existent in our institution. And this is as a direct effect of what happened when Jammeh claimed people cure HIV. Because all advocacy, all awareness, all interventions on HIV completely were removed from our system. So we have a generation of young people who are not educated on this. And today we are feeling that effect. So again, as much when we talk about transitional justice, these are other pressing issues. As much as we are talking about prosecutions, reparations, how do we also keep an eye and pay attention on these and how they are affecting our society? So young people, when you go in your communities, when you talk, please talk about issues around HIV because it's everywhere in our communities. And for me, I see this as a direct result of Jammeh claiming that he could cure HIV. So again, in our intervention on the post-TRRC process, we must also consider. Thank you. I totally agree with you. HIV and AIDS is not currently in our communities as when we were growing up with how big HIV is. And it's a conversation that we have. But again, with our pop SLE, we're all online now. You know, TikTok, Facebook, these are things that we can understand what is happening. And I think we should use the internet. And Father, thank you so much for also talking about how subjective another reflection. So we can please make this as short as possible because we have just 10 minutes. So within 10 minutes, a minute or a minute and a half, each person takes, then we can have as much as possible.
Okay, good afternoon.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, go ahead. A minute.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Memnalia Gasama. I just wanted to make something clear to me. Aminata did mention of something called the safe space where victims could go and talk about what you were going through. But I wanted to ask about how safe is the safe space itself? Because I cannot come to you and tell you my story and then the same story is being told to me by someone else. Or I read my story on the socials. Anything can happen. So I wanted to know how safe is the safe space that she mentioned of.
Oh, the safe spaces that they do.
Yes, how safe is it?
Well, thank you. In fact, you know the safe spaces, they are part of the recommendation of the TRRC. The TRRC, in their recommendation, particularly on the sexual and gender-based violence, they recognize that as a society, and this, when I was presenting, I was mentioning my appreciation of the TRRC, particularly on SGP, because they recognize the need for Gambian communities to have open conversations around sexual and gender-based violence. They recognize victim blaming, they recognize backlash towards victims when they share their experiences. We've seen that on the media, we've seen how that has actually driven survivors from not sharing. These cases are conducted by many of our, not just direct victims as in the TRRC, but we create safe spaces for young women as well. I do acknowledge that concern because again, in many cases, people still fear sharing their experiences because based on the fear of the issues we face. Yes. However, for example, I know and I can speak on behalf of other organizations. One of the rules of our we do not respect confidentiality. We do not talk about people who in their names. And also, one of the rules is that even where we talk about someone's experiences, it's based on consent. There are some victims who do not consider themselves. They are victims, but they are survivors. Yeah. They have gone through the process where they want to tell their story. They don't want to be denied. So for those victims, for what I say, this is my story. I want to share so I can inspire another person. I want the Gambians to know that this it wasn't my fault. Maybe that person before they went through this whole process, when they were a victim, they didn't feel comfortable to share that. But they went through a process where they are healed and they want to then tell their story. And that's power. And we should encourage victims who are in the space where they want to tell their story. And I can speak, I haven't experienced any victim who have shared something and it was taken out publicly. And victims know their right, and in any of these cases, that's what we give them. And confidentiality is something that our main guiding principle is making sure that
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. That's clear.
So I am so grateful that you raised this because we can all remember the I Am Tufa movement. You know, Tufa was one of the victims of the I
Okay.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say thank you to the organizer for a shorter program like this. Hi, I'm Michaela Fitwright. I'm working for the FATO Network. I've been a journalist for over 11 years. Relocating in 1 year back in the country, we still have challenges, especially when it comes to women's stories. You know, sometimes you want to do a particular interview like a victim. Some of them, they are not ready to talk. The reason why, it's just simple. Even if I tell you my story, nothing gonna happen. It just remain the same. So sometimes, most of them, they prefer to die. For example, I will not tell my story, I will not share my story to nobody. I would rather die than tell my story. Because even at the end of the day, if I tell you my story, what's going to happen? So you see the challenges we are having? Sometimes as female journalists, we want to go beyond, dig deep and get what we want to get. So that, that story can be an inspiration to other women. So I think the government need to put feet to that. It's not about implementing, it's about the work itself. So at the end of the day, even us, the journalists, our work can be easy. Thank you.
I know during the TRS because a lot of training are taking place when it comes to training and all of that. But as a journalist, I can confidently say that we have a long way to go when it comes to victim protection. Because we've seen a lot of major rape cases in Gambia, just general cases of sexual and gender-based violence, and the reporting is very bad. That is just the other thing. Yes.
You follow me on social media. One of the things that I am very fond of doing is writing the headlines for media houses. Just you see repeatedly where victim blaming, you can see it in the headline. Where just last week there was an front page where I think the title was the perpetrator was weeping because he was accused of rape. You know, because the headline matters. The way you write your headlines sends a strong statement. It could be you are sympathizing with the accused person or you are blaming the victim. And these are all factors that prevent women, particularly victims of sexual violence, from coming forward. And also sensitivity in reporting. You will see a case of a minor or a victim who wants to remain unknown, yet you will see the journalist naming them, full name, where they live. So there's no identity protection. And that is also another reason why victims are not coming forward. Because we all know, we've seen on social media, when women share their audios or experiences of violence, it's usually the woman that is blamed. We would always see people come online and attacking women. So, and these are the reasons why women don't come to journalists. There are so many stories, there are so many people who want to speak, but the fear of backlash. But also, this is also very relevant
in issues of prosecution. SPBD was identified as an issue that happened across the 22 years of dictatorship. There are so many people who were raped, but because of this same fear that they will be attacked, they will be blamed, they are not going to come forward. And we are going to struggle when we prosecute these crimes because there is no protection for victims. So these are all conversations that we need to have. I know someone has been waiting for long. Bring it on.
Hello. Well, yeah, I was just going to chip in because I see a lot of young people around and we keep on repeating young people. And I think what you were saying, just to add on that, is factual that the TRRC report actually specifically said that when it comes to violence against women, it's been very underreported. Because we've seen, even if it were not for the safe spaces that the CSOs do, we were not going to get the factual report when it comes to the violence against women. I think ICTJ also had a women report that they did. If it were not for those, we were not going to have a report when it comes to sexual violence. Another one I wanted to probably talk about is, you talked about reconciliation, and I think Zainab touched a little bit on how we have to make sure that the process goes the right way. Like example, you cannot talk about forgiveness, which is different from reconciliation. Reconciliation, it has to be pioneered by the government. We all know that. But when it comes to forgiveness, it has to come from the victims to the perpetrators. In some cases, you'll have like the witch hunt, which probably the government can come out and do a public acknowledgement, which is good when it comes to their healing process. But I think we should differentiate these two things, especially when it comes to victims having their own opinion when it comes to how to forgive people and the process of that forgiveness. As I think Imran touched a little bit on the AUTJP, which is the policy that has just been approved by all the African Union nations. And part of the recommendations was that we make sure we inject the traditional part of the process itself, because it used to just be about the formal and the informal. But now that we are trying to push the traditional aspect of it, which I think is really important when it comes to reconciliation and even forgiveness, because the reconciliatory committee that the TRRC had was kind of a formal, and most of the reconciliations that happened there was between perpetrators that became victims, and then, became, and not other people were perpetrators too. But when it comes to the victims and the perpetrators themselves, I don't think that is a form that the Gambia is traditionally used to. And even if you feel like you do it in the public domain, I don't think it will help when it comes to peaceful coexistence in the long run. So we might want to look at the ways that we want to, approach these processes. And then I heard the NHRC also, which is supposed to be the monitoring body for the recommendations, which is a holistic responsibility. It cannot just be the NHRC. It has to be, especially the youth. Why I emphasize on the youth is that even the recommendations around the April 10th and 11th, which is a thematic area that is very important to you guys. And then when you look at our context, like Fatu was talking about, we have to make sure that we look at things in our own context. Even the rights, the civil rights that we have, we are not like progressive as far as the TRRC recommendations are concerned. We cannot have a peaceful space for youths to organize themselves and probably show grievances on anything. There is no guarantee that if any student comes out today to probably protest or anything, that what happened to the April 10th and 11th victims would not happen to you. There's no guarantee. But there are recommendations that are supposed to give you that guarantee of non-reoccurrence when it comes to things like that. So as youth, Jennifer said it, you're just a fingertip away from getting informed. Somebody talked about the white paper here, supposing we are supposed to popularize that word. Anyway, I am sure that each and every one of you can help when it comes to that. Because if you go online, you see the white paper at the MOJ page or even at the NHRC page. So if you know the content of the white paper, you can start a conversation around it with the people that don't understand it. So that way you can monitor. If you cannot monitor, there is no guarantee of non-reoccurrence, right? So if you look at our implementation level, this is our 6. What are we doing? There are recommendations that don't even need legislation, like banning, vetting, like simple things that we need to fix if we push for the political will to be there. So it's a collective responsibility. I'm sure the CSOs are doing their part, but I think it's up to us as youth to take up this fight, to make sure that we monitor the implementation. And if it's not done, we have to hold certain people accountable, right? Now we have the Reparation Commission is already set up. We also have the SPOs, the SAMs. All of these are information that we need to know, understand how governance works, so that we can hold the public officials accountable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ida. So that is all that we can have for the reflections, but we can ensure that the conversation continues, you know, maybe Twitter spaces. There are just different spaces that we can utilize to ensure that the conversation continues. So part of the activities of WILL is that they have a mentorship program. So through this mentorship program, young girls, school going, get to register. And when they do, they are trained on career development, leadership skills, as well as sexual and gender-based violence. So one of the mentees is passionate about poetry. So she has a poem that she wants to recite for us. A round of applause for Susan Taylor. Guys, give her some energy, you know?
Hello, everybody. As Diana mentioned, my name is Susan Taylor, and I am glad that you all get to hear what I have for you today. So I'm going to be reading a poem under transitional justice, and the poem is titled Justice in the Silence. And here goes. In lands one torn by fear and fight, where shadows rule and hid the light, a voice now rises, calm and true, to tell the past and start anew. The wounds are deep, the scars still speak of mothers lost and children weak. But justice walks in with steady peace to lift the veil from every face. No vengeance here, no blind rage, but justice written page by page. A broken system slowly mends as truth and hope becomes our friends. With trials, tears, and acts of grace, we build again a safer place. For when peace is born, justice stands with open hearts and healing hands. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that brilliant piece. So this brings us to the end of this Stakeholder Forum. Thank you so much to the media for streaming this online and ensuring that everybody is aware of what is happening. And thank you so much to all civil society organizations here for us. Let us make sure that the conversation continues and that we implement the recommendations from this Stakeholder Forum today. Thank you so much, Bill Fatu and your team. You have done an amazing job. We're looking forward to more of this. A round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you. So lunch.
Hello. So can you guys can take the picture frames and the placards and go to the banner and take it to the photographer is there. And then we can also go for lunch.
Thank you.
That was okay.
Thank you. It is awesome. So you guys didn't even get to